where he says black people in inner city America shouldn't be focused on Bernie Sanders. Black Lives Matter.
No, but Bernie Sanders is the only one going to provide jobs with a living wage.
From Bernie Sanders. He says my mother, who got me out of poverty, wasn't focused on some socialist in a small state. She was focused on getting me to learn how to read and learn how to pull myself up.
Yes, but they should be concerned with Martin Luther King Jr., right? Martin Luther King Jr. was a democratic socialist. He was concerned about strong family, strong church, strong mosque, strong synagogue, strong civic institutions, but jobs with a living wage, quality education, decent housing, not provided by government, but seized onto opportunities made available by the society as a whole.
But what about you? Because you're part of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Oh, I'm a small part. I'm a very proud part of it.
So what about that? Because the point that Peggy was making there is,
Yes.
and Dr. Carson too, is you go out and you protest over this one guy who gets killed by a cop after you pulled a gun on the cop, but no protest over the death of this little girl. Where is the protest over the state of inner city America and the policies that have left African Americans in these communities in the state they are?
Well, I mean, the sister Yana Jones in Detroit, 7 years old, shot by the police. We ought to be full of righteous indignation. This precious sister that Sister Peggy's concerned about, killed by some black person, we ought to be rightly concerned about. But the focus on the state-sponsored violence versus the individual violence that takes place across the board are two different things.
But the numbers are staggering. I mean, huge. The numbers on the one dwarf the numbers of the police brutality incidents.
When you socially neglect the people, when you economically abandon people, when you transfer wealth from them to the well-to-do, generation after generation, how will they respond? They're going to respond with unbelievable levels of very sad forms of despair. This is true for anybody. I don't care what color you are. This is true in Appalachia. It's true among indigenous people. It's true with brown. It's true all around the world, man. It's true for Irish. It's true for Greeks. It's a human thing when you abandon folk.
Doc, I got to go.
Yeah, sure. No, I understand.
Great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Kevin Jackson's here as well. He's executive director of the blacksphere.net and author of the book Race Pimping. Kevin, your thoughts?
Hey, Megyn. Dr. Cornell West is an anachronism. He's stuck in the 60s. Everything he's talking about are things that don't apply today. What Peggy said is exactly what's happening. I grew up, my dad was in San Quentin prison. My mother died when I was 5. If I'd lived with my father, I wouldn't be sitting in front of this camera. I'd be in prison. I got raised by my grandparents who instilled the right types of things in me. And the problem is we're instilling violence and craziness in the black community. And Peggy got it right. Dr. Carson got it right. It's strong black family members raising children correctly that are going to correct this problem. It's not going to be more enabling by these bourgeois cocktail-sipping leftists and these enabling Democrat policies and leftist policies and progressive policies.
But you heard the messaging. You heard the messaging from Cornell West, which is income inequality and the state and the system. I mean, this is the messaging is that it's rigged against these communities.
Well, he's lying. It isn't rigged against us. The only thing rigged against you is when somebody can get inside of your mind and make you believe you're less than somebody else. And Dr. Carson is an example of somebody who didn't believe it, and I am as well. Look, when we start empowering these young kids to believe that they are worthy and that it isn't the thug life that's going to make their lives different. It's going to be them deciding to pick themselves up and do something with their lives. It's going to change. But it isn't going to change if we don't allow people like Peggy to speak their mind. And I love what she did because it was so impassioned. And she's from the same streets. I'm in the same vicinity as she is, saying the same thing. And you know what? We shouldn't be looking at her as a hero. I'm glad she did it. She should be the shining example of what many black people in this community are doing. And unfortunately, she's not. She's more anecdotal. But what's not anecdotal is the crime in black neighborhoods. And you alluded to it with Cornell West. There are many more blacks being killed by blacks with stray bullets and drive-bys and everything else than cops killing black people. But that's not the narrative that sells.
And amazingly, that is not what pushes people to the street, the death of these young women, these young girls, these young boys who get shot in these drive-bys. It is. I understand his distinction between when a law enforcement officer does it versus when a criminal does it. But when you have the criminals doing it in these overwhelming numbers, it's shocking and it's deeply sad. Kevin, it's great to see you.
You too, Megyn.
Extraordinary, right? Extraordinary. So we've got the Ben Carson editorial now on our Facebook page if you want to go check it out, facebook.com/The Kelly File. And we also have some news breaking tonight as Governor Jeb Bush goes after Donald Trump's immigration plan as unworkable, unrealistic, and not conservative. Chris Stirewalt is here next as the gloves come off and we get some new polls on Hispanics and Mr. Trump.